not sure I wanted that yet. Okay, recording is on it. This even lets me pause it. This really is a smart little system here, the Zoom system. I love it for training. I had to figure out how to do the eraser part thing here. Wow, I can even give the mouse to someone else. I can do share. Okay, look at that. Whiteboard. Hi. I'm gonna need my trackpad. I'm not gonna need something better than my trackball for this. But pretty cool. All right. Sorry, guys. Excuse my doing. I'm looking at all the new stuff. Okay, so back to this desktop. And I'm curious if it. All right, yeah, wiped out the annotations. Well, all that stuff is really nice. It's going to make for the ability on live trainings to drill in and do some close-up stuff. I'm recording so I can see what the video format is. And we've been on this just a couple times and tested it off and on over the while. And I mean, you know, I'm going to go over a little bit of stuff that I talked about this morning on the steering call because it, you know, basically we'll be making a couple of, I think, significant changes that are going to produce a significantly different result. Essentially, you know, for the last few months, I have been, you know, y'all know this project's been ambitious, you know, and, you know, to make the leap to the next step. And quite just frankly, with the ambitious level that I had, was going to require me being more than one person, probably more like 2 or 3 people. And after several weeks of, you know, banging, you know, trying to, you know, get things finished and just simply realizing this isn't, it just hasn't happened, and I'm already working to max capacity. So when you're faced with the clock being full, no more time, you got to find it somewhere, you know. And I've always tried to peel it back, you know. And during this, also in the last few months, I've had a chance to work with some alt media, social media publishers, and I kind of studied their business cycle a little bit. And I've also been, you know, talk about some radio stuff. We've got some pretty interesting shifts that all fit into the same thing. The object is to launch JMAP, lightning, period, in the story, and get into marketing, money making mode immediately. And those 2 criteria have not changed one bit, right? 2 things are primarily needed for that. The completion of a training library. My challenge has been with that has been, you know, if you look at the call schedule, and I mean, even though I haven't made a lot of the calls here in the last few months, really, I have always structured my day around making the calls, and so the time ran out. You know, different things would happen, and I don't end up making a call, but it still ended up whacking my day out. So I've stepped back and thought about it, and we're going to go to a much heavier reliance on pre-recorded calls, even for some stuff that we had some live calls on, and then focus on doing the live calls being either of 2 type workshops, okay, for our people involved in Factor 7 program that will get more hands-on, and then promotional calls, but not presentations necessarily. Simultaneous with this thinking, and this kind of made me noodle it harder, was the opportunity I've been invited to do a radio show that obviously we're hoping to have picked up in syndication. It won't start till May, but it's focused on basically online opportunities, making money online all different ways you can, and of course it would feature our company and the things that we do, our platform, in the context of how to exploit the internet. Right? It's a pretty rare opportunity, and how'd that come up? It came up because I've been a guest speaker, whatever you call them, in a couple of business talk shows that have been in local markets here over the last couple of months. I haven't really talked a whole lot about them because I wasn't allowed to really plug anything on them. It was really just more, you've heard talk radio, and you got a contributing talker, talking head, whatever you want to call it. And I was just kind of getting my feel in it. And I've done a little bit more of it lately by request, and I just never really thought of it as a medium, but combined with social media and essentially, how do we attract people to our business? Because I've been shifted in thinking about that heavily for a while, and landing pages, funnels, and all that's, once you have the interested party, then you take them down the sales funnel, right? Well, that's all well and good. But then you have all these opportunities to drive traffic. Okay, and I mean, our system and we're teaching, showing people is going to be how to push and create that internet footprint to pull traffic off the web. That's all well and good, but there are also, people these days, I mean, since we've even been doing this, the explosion of video on the internet, we've watched it happen. If you live in a market where the internet connections aren't strong, in the evening, especially this time, some of the slowest connections out there because you're competing with what? All the people at home watching digital internet for their TV now, for example. Their Hulu, Vudu, Netflix, all that's competing with our webinar bandwidth right now, and so forth. And I know Mark's had trouble connecting on calls in the evening, and it's a lot of it's because her particular area is behind on their internet bandwidth, and I suspect that some others. The other thing I noticed was, more people were watching recorded calls that, when we were able to get those out, then would come to the live ones, which also pointed to, I think what's just happened in this new world, everything instead of being on the supply side is on the demand side. Which actually makes sense because the internet brought in the world of on-demand information, right? It really did. And and if you don't know the difference between that, supply side, television is supply side. And there was a broadcasting signal all the time. You show up in their pre-designated slot to get the information. In other words, there's a ton of supply out there, all right, and you go get it what you want, but you can't turn on your TV necessarily, right, and dial in. I want to. When you turn it on, some story happened about X, Y, Z, and turn it on, and that news channel is necessarily broadcasting that story. Whereas on the internet, you can, right? You can go to their website, go to YouTube, whatever, pull up the video and information on the one specific thing you want. What's it led to? It's led to, a couple things, some good, some bad. We're just going to talk about the good from a marketing standpoint. It lets you propagate your message out there quicker and deeper, and actually have it constantly working for you, which is which is a really good thing, and my mission, and this is just from my experience in networking and network marketing, was always, and still to the day, the dinosaur network marketers will say, oh, you got to have live events, live events, live events. Well, I think it's good to have some, you know, but unless you're doing like today, these internet chats and where people can engage with each other, basically a social event, it doesn't have the appeal that the old event used to do. Now, also think about having a nighttime where you've got, we've got these, rigid calls, right? And how it ends up dictating your life and schedule. So I think y'all see kind of, basically where I'm going with this. And the other thing about doing nighttime trainings, guys, I mean, I'm about 30% of my best at night at this time. Um, just it's the long, days are long, and I'm for whatever reason I get up a lot earlier here, and so by the time 8, 9 o'clock, even 7 o'clock rolls around here, I'm a crispy French fry. And the other thing, when you do a live call, you want to prepare to do a live call so that you can, stay on point. It's all of that stuff takes a lot of time. The difference is, I think this is going to be part of our core marketing strategy, for people who want to do some video, even if it's, some really neat things you can do with video and pictures, and we'll talk about that. But, first off, you lead by example. You have to do what's being done, and, most people, I find, and just from calls, people, they have trouble, everybody basically showing up for a supply side scenario is not all, it's not optimal. For example, I think we would be far better served, and I know I do far better technical trainings earlier in the day. I'm sharper, for example, and it's just, how your day goes. If there's anything like mine, it's less complicated in the morning, and as the day goes on, it gets more complicated. It's just the nature of the world we live in. And mine's no different. So, with if we shifting over to a recorded training model would allow us to uh, to do our interactive live trainings perhaps during the day. In Team Falcon years ago with Emerald and with LifePath, we used to do a lot of our most technical stuff in the middle of the day. Any of you here that were involved back then remember that, usually in the lunch hour slot. and we record those. Part of the challenge, and one of the reasons I'm getting away from GoToWebinar is because first off, it's expensive, and it really doesn't. Even though they streamline the video process a bit, it's still a pain. You still have to go. It uploads it. It takes a while after a call. Then you have to publish it. There's 2 or 3 steps after, and then you have to, and then you got to get the link out to people, and it's still a 4-step process. It granted, it happens in batch mode in the background as opposed to what I used to have to do, which was basically after a training call, run a playback of a GoToWebinar file, which was incompatible with anything, record it with Camtasia, re-rip it, and publish it out there. It was a huge time vampire. I think back the last few years of how much time I've spent, whenever I've attempted and kept up with the training call schedule, the enormous amount of time, it was a full-time job by itself. Well, in today's world, it's just not practical, because, especially when there's alternative solutions that are automatic and free, because that all fits with everything that we're talking and teaching. Okay, so our whole presentation, the way we're going about doing everything, by necessity, I think, just by virtue of the fact, I've had trouble hitting times and being able to host live calls, getting the end of the day. I might, at the beginning of a day, I'm looking at saying, okay, or even midway through, okay, I've got 3 hours of things I need to do to be prepared for this call. Well, so I actually effectively might get 1.5 of those, one of those, maybe 2, on after all the interruptions and afternoon things that come up in life, and so I may not get to the point. That's why I ended up having to cancel so many, was like, I don't want to do trainings where I can't complete them. If I do recorded trainings, let's say I encounter a problem. Well, I can just hit the stop button or the pause button on the recorder. If it requires me to do anything, with the system, I can go tweak it if I have to right on the spot, and then go back and record. We only need, in my list right now, is 23 short videos that takes people from the beginning to being able to do everything they need to do inside the Lightning system. Okay, and they're all real short. I'm talking like 10 minutes of this. There's 10 minutes is a long one. I have actually 15 of those videos done. Okay, and so I mean, I got stopped when the content saving program, content parsing system, took a dump on us a few weeks ago. That stopped that process, because to try to get some time leverage, I would end up taking recordings from live calls and cutting those up. And again, it's just it's a waste of time. That's been really, when I look back at the barrier in time, I've needed more time, to light things off. This whole thing is like firing up a battleship. It's not just one thing that has to go off at the same, in a certain sequence, a sequence of things do. I mean, it's not enough to just put the system out there and say, to go sell it without getting quickly overwhelmed by your new clients needing a whole lot of your time to fill in the gaps where, things that are necessary don't exist. So, you guys have, probably looked at from more of an arm's length distance and seen that more obviously than I have. Again, I've been in the weeds of the code for most of the last few years. And so getting out, barreling through, getting us into sales and selling, that's really been, for 6 months here, I've been, spending at least half of my, waking hours on that task, and it's more than just websites and funnels and changing. It's, really comes down to doing, automating the process of training and teaching people to guide them through. So, it's, again, it's on demand system available when somebody needs it. They can get the information, and that way people, you can market day or night. You go up, put stuff in, so people come, they find your stuff 2 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, doesn't matter. They can go through, complete the thought, make the decision, and we designed the Lightning program essentially to be, inside that sweet spot under $100, so people can make that initial decision without necessarily even talking to you. Okay, and get online and be up and running, potentially within, from the time they first learn about it, being able to say, hey, within, 10 minutes, 15 minutes from this moment, you can be up and online publishing. So, that's, those things have to be in place to then go make those statements in the marketing videos. And hence you see what I would call the vicious cycle, the Mexican standoff of that I have faced trying to get this done and finished, because it's, there's a circle of parts, and to get the time to finish it, what I'm doing personally is, beginning actually tonight, and I'm going to spend all day tomorrow doing nothing but focusing on and finishing that initial lightning training library. So that's done, goes on the system, it's out of the way. Yeah, we'll add to it for sure, but we'll do it. We're going to do some workshops. I'm going to want to take our users and offer everybody the chance who wants their own little channel within our and think tank within our um, within our environment, our platform, to showcase your case studies or any things you don't want to do, and that's an easy way to benefit from the socialization of the platform, without getting too complicated. It's actually something pretty simple, and it's a benefit too. So we want to all work and leverage. We want to all work in this ultimate environment, because believe it or not, when you get down into making the big dollars, that's going to take ear to ear time on the phone, face to face, whatever it is. You still need that, because people generally don't pull the trigger on anything more more expensive than $100 without talking to a human being. They just don't, and most people aren't necessarily going to do that without even necessarily buy lightning without talking to a person. I think we can get as high as 30 or 40% of them to do that, which would be a great conversion rate, by the way. Okay, so and then the other aspect of this, my grander vision, if you will, I'm basically pulling. I'm going to continue to pull back a bit on some of that stuff, because I just think it's trying to bite off more we can chew, and it was always my plan to light all this up, and just have not figured out a way to do it in the time frame needed to get the wheels up. So it's just, when that happens, you got to do one thing. You got to go back. It doesn't mean go back to the drawing board. It just means rethinking, the game plan of how you get it out there and up. So we're going to focus, basically, and when I know you guys, by the way, I'm alive and well, and thank goodness the MRIs and the CAT scans and all came back negative for any structural damage in my hip area and all, which gave me a lot of problems last few weeks, stemming from a spill I had down the stairs a couple months ago. I can actually look back to the date of that spill and see where that kind of started, started jamming me for time. Because after all, I'm only human. But I was always just pushing it to the edge, and it's unrealistic to try to sustain that. Especially when you beat your head up against the wall and you're not getting through. Okay, and it's about finishing. You hear me talk about it all the time, and so when you talk about it and you don't actually get it done, trust me, it's a it's a major eye opener. All right, but as you guys know, I mean, there's no way in the world I'm giving up on this. Because there's a couple other neat things, and one of the focuses you're gonna see. You probably noticed out there, WordPress is advertising now. Now, why would WordPress advertise a free software platform to give away? I don't know if anybody can think of why. Right? I don't have any idea. But the fact is, more. I would venture to say 60 to 80% of our initial target customers, by the way, people who are going to appreciate what we have, are going to be people who are already blogging or trying to blog or something like that. To get somebody who's got an established blog to change off their blog and come into our system and start over, even just being able to go in and suck the content out of WordPress, which you have all APIs and plugins to do. The typical person is not going to want to lose that effort, any rank they have, any value on that domain. They're going to want something to enhance that. All right. Well, we already know JMAP does a great job of that. Yet, for what we want the Lightning system to do, is a strategy. This program is designed to be the one entry point that any internet marketer, anybody doing any kind of digital content marketing, is from this one platform, from this one application, can do everything, with one activity. Okay. And as I explained to people before, it's not just about social media. It's not just about, by the way, most people, the contemporary internet marketer emergers all the news stories are happening where on social media. But most of those people with censorship coming on, or what, they're scrambling around trying to get back, get a toehold back in the in what a lot of the youngsters call the legacy internet marketing world, our world, right? It's really not so legacy. It's just it's basically building your castle on concrete instead of on somebody else's beach, right? Um, and think about all the these you spend any time on YouTube, there's all these people you never heard of, but they got 100,000 followers, and you know they're getting a nice check from Google every month for for monetization. They got it going on. They've got it going, a way to make some money on it, but it's very hard for them. When they mature, they're all looking for a way to get into, get their content, get their people into a platform they actually own. So for somebody engaging now, starting cold in internet marketing, you want a way, whether you want to go social or not, to make that social footprint as you're selling this. And I'm going to snap back into the mindset of selling it. If you know the numbers at 8 out of 10 people, or make it simple, go out there and, if you're looking for leads, right, people to email, text, or talk to, right, you can go to WordPress registry of all the WordPress sites in the world, and there are hundreds of millions of them, all right? And for the ones that are acting by running WordPress, and pretty soon I'll have the Joomla APIs working. And then, they have a total front end, because every one of those people, wants to, they're having to make the choice between what their primary mode is, the blog, and they have to, maybe do YouTube too, and they have to then maintain their Facebook, and they have to maintain their Twitter, so forth and so on. So you tend to see people kind of, basically, building empires in one of them, and not necessarily all of them, but they've got a primary and a secondary and a tertiary system. But it's a big thing. I know from doing commercial estimates for people, when you look at, the labor costs to go manually go post out to, just the basics of social media into website and linking it up for every article you post. It's that labor is intensive. 90%, 95% of the effort that's gone into Lightning and the automation therein, the robotics of it, if you will, is about automating that entire process for people. So it makes that same point, and it makes it repetitive for people, so they can just go through that, or the simple process. So anyway, I know a lot of you guys have heard this before. I'm trying to put a sharp pin on, because this is really, I just think that's, I know in my mind I'm gunning for that, and I've talked about it before. But I have, by shifting this, my own focus out, and me going into, a Tuesday, knowing, okay, we're only going to be worried about one live call, and that one live call isn't necessarily going to be a specific training about a specific thing, more than it's maybe a general discussion about products. Think radio show, right, or interactive broadcast, talking about various aspects of things that would attract people to, is a marketing tool almost, and then trainings, training. There's nothing sexy about any of the details of what we do. Okay, so doing training calls and inviting prospects to it is probably a negative, not a positive, right, from a marketing perspective. And that's not to say that you want to hide any truth from anyone, but think about it. If you knew before you started any business what was involved in it, you probably never start one. Okay, because there's no way to know. I mean, you go buy a franchise, right? Franchise disclosure rules require you to, you get a big old book. You're required basically to go through it, lays the whole business model out in great detail. Everything about it. It's very structured, very organized. So you're paying for essentially with a franchise, right? Um, they've got the staffing, they know the numbers, the ratios, etc., and they got it down to a science. All you have to do is quote unquote plug in right to their model, learn it, execute it, and rinse and repeat. That's that whole model. Our model is based largely on that. Yet, law doesn't require us to basically hose everybody down with the bad news before they make the decision, which is what franchise laws require, right? That's why MLM, network marketing's resisted that as a standard for so long. Remember, people are spending generally hundreds of thousands of dollars for franchises, okay, if not millions in some cases. That level of disclosure is required before somebody makes a decision like that. We're not collecting that kind of bank. In the nature of our product, remember, when somebody even people catalyze their business with us by buying training, or by buying by the way, we're gonna thank you, TJ, for reminding. I was just looking up, realizing this. Yeah, I got to upgrade this thing. I'll do it for the next call. To go longer than 40 minutes, but 40 minutes. Actually, I kind of like the 40 minutes. It's short enough. The um, So let me surmise it. Um, so I'm gonna start putting out, doing a couple of things. I'm on training videos, making a part. I'm gonna be essentially focus on anything that I would do on a live call that's of any kind of training nature. Simply recording it when in advance, and in a time when it's a good time to record when it's quiet, and stay. The biggest adjustment for me will be a morning production schedule versus an evening one, right? I don't know about you, I'm pretty much more efficient in the morning, a whole lot more efficient before noon. And then think about network marketing. Pretty much it's an afternoon, evening thing when you talk about contact. As we grow and get more people, I do want to have a live event, you know, um, and it's because I just think community is important, you know. But I'll be candid with you. I don't know these days. I see different companies doing different things because of social media and whatnot. Even community is compartmentalized down to smaller groups. People build their teams. They have their little niche, their angle, and those people compartmentalize. In many cases, boots on the ground, local. Okay, and it's just this is basically the current architecture. The old days of I would call the two up, the big ticket two up, live calls, lots of hype. I really don't know if anybody's doing any of that anymore. Okay, and so because of that, I think it's thinking and looking at the model, I think trying to do that was a hindrance. So anyway, just in summary, so tomorrow I'm going to put out these. I'm going to do some tonight. Is it over? Um, no, it's 5 minutes left. I got 3 minutes. Tomorrow I'm going to put out um, I'm going to start streaming the videos. I'm going to keep communicating with y'all with emails and whatnot. I'm going to put all the lightning stuff in. It's going to be in the step page, the lightning page, this one. Okay, and it'll go through each and every step. I haven't decided on workshops. We're going to do Saturday. I like targeting. I hate taking Saturdays, but I like targeting Saturdays. But now, by rethinking this and opening up basically the middle of the days to do some technical training, we can peel off Saturdays, and just focus on in recording, obviously, and having it available for people who can't make the live actual, and these are workshop trainings. These are the calls where people can get access. That's really the idea of them anyway, is just give people support. So anyway, I'm about to run. This is about to be over and run out. It did it. Okay. Oh, it's giving me a little cue to upgrade now. Yeah, it's not gonna be able to do it while we're going on here. But I did record this, guys. Let's see how fast this recording will publish out there and get it back out. I see some people streaming in late here. If you haven't been here since the beginning of the call, watch the video when it comes back out. It does explain everything I covered. And yeah, this call is going to wrap up in a couple minutes, just in an encapsulation for those of you who just got here. We're shifting over to a recorded training model to do 99% of the heavy lifting. All right. And I've got 16 of the 24 videos, 15 and a half, 6 of the ones that we need to get everybody basically up and operating on Lightning. I'm putting all my energy in that, beginning tonight, tomorrow. It's all I'm going to do until those are done. All right. And then I'm going to focus on the next thing being a workshop. But I'm going to lay this out as far as, what we're going to do on live calls, the radio program, and it will actually be a radio program. We'll take the place of the 8 o'clock Thursday night call. Because that time slot's open. It's the one they want me to take, and and then there's a Saturday program too. So anyway, I'm gonna run out of time before I can explain all this stuff. Yeah, just a few things. Like I said, top of the call, several things of just a rethink, just on execution and how to get. My challenge has been time, guys, and just one of me, trying to get the big boat shoved off the dock and having to rethink how to do it because I haven't been successful pushing off the dock as of yet. I'm not a giver upper. Things are ready to rip. Didn't really get into show you lightning tonight. I'm going to record it and y'all will see it. We'll plan on being here Thursday night. I'll have this set up where we can do a longer call. We'll plan on doing a Thursday night workshop. Okay, but I want y'all to have the benefit of having training videos in your hands, going through them. We get some feedback on those Thursday. Lock that sucker down, and I can shift all my focus into the marketing stuff, releasing it, recording it, training on it, etc. And it's just a little surge of work for this short period of time, and then it'll be then we'll be done and behind us. So, well, that's it. The call's going to be wrapping up. You guys make it a great night, and we'll talk to you. You'll hear from me in tomorrow for sure. Y'all have a good one. How does this work? Stop. In meeting.